I've never been to Mexico, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I've wanted to go, but my family's gonna hate me for saying this.
Yeah.
But I think after seeing your videos, I felt more inclined to actually visit.
You're like, dang, this white guy can do it, I can do it too.
Cara, la comida de mexicana es picosa, como
Ajá, claro.
yo pensé que todos los otros países hispanos
Claro.
tenían comidas similares.
Claro.
Entonces, algo que yo siempre me encanta como introducir a mis amigos es bolis, ¿verdad? Porque
claro.
no, otra palabra que me acabo de descubrir por ti es aguajalote.
Guajolote. Colima o Durango.
¿Te vas a llevar a pasear?
¿Puede ser?
And then I remember calling my mom that day and I was like, Mom, it's like, why did you name me Luis? It's like the most common Mexican name. I wanted to be like more mysterious.
Buenas tardes desde la hermosa California. Aquí estamos en California, estoy con mi amigo Luis. De hecho es curioso cómo nos conocimos porque tú eres un fan, un suscriptor y me enviaste un mensaje, me dijiste, oye, cuando estés en California me avisas, podemos hacer algo, no sé qué. Entonces aquí estamos.
¿Sabes qué? No estaba listo a hablar en español.
Ah, perdón.
Pero voy a hacer lo más que pueda para
¿Tú puedes?
que tu gente me entienda.
Ah, muy bien, muy bien. Luis, tú naciste aquí en California.
Sí.
¿Y tus papás son mexicanos?
Sí.
¿De dónde son?
Mi papá es de Durango
Ok.
y mi mamá es de Colima.
Ah, ok, muy
Sí.
bien. Y bueno, quería platicar contigo hoy sobre tu experiencia aquí en Estados Unidos o en California como un mexicano-americano o alguien de raíces mexicanas pero nacido aquí en Estados Unidos. Puedes decir en inglés también si quieres.
Okay. Because I know you just like said everything in Spanish.
No, es que...
All right. There was so much pride in being Mexican American growing up, and I was surrounded by my people, if you will, or
Yeah.
like Latinos and Hispanics,
Sure.
and so it wasn't until I started to like explore and meet other groups of people that I started to like really feel a little bit different, right? I never really experienced direct discrimination, but growing up, I think I experienced like some microaggressions, I would say. So people would say that my English is pretty good, and I didn't feel like any animosity towards individuals who would say stuff like that. I think it came more from a place of, I should say ignorance. But I think as far as discrimination goes, that's what I experienced. But like now, I'm gonna get a little bit political.
No, it's good, go for it.
Like now, what I've kind of noticed is a lot of animosity towards immigrants, especially with what's happening at the border.
Sure.
And I think this is more from the far right, but I feel like, although I understand the value of wanting a secure border, I just don't think that there's ever any alternative suggested by the right, right? So I feel like they lack in that compassion element.
Sure, totally.
So like I do feel a bit hurt that there's like a specific group of people that strongly dislike Latinos, right?
Sure. Do you feel more Mexican? Do you feel more American? Neither? Because I know this is a big issue that a lot of Latinos struggle with when they're born in the United States.
Yeah.
And they say, I don't feel 100% Mexican or Guatemalan or Salvadorian, whatever. But I also don't feel 100% American.
Right.
How do you feel?
That's a really good question. I feel like I've heard that phrase time and time again, ni de aquí, ni de allá. I feel
Exacto.
the same. There's some things that I didn't like, which is that like, I guess I just wanted to feel a bit more accepted by Mexicans. But that was like the initial feeling until I realized that I don't really have to like uphold any like cultural norms for anybody.
Something that I think a lot of, for example, Latinos in my Spanish class in high school struggled with was being embarrassed that they didn't know Spanish. Obviously you do speak Spanish well and you clearly understand well.
Yeah.
But sometimes you might, you forget a word or you're not sure or you can't connect with certain people.
Yeah.
Does that bring about any feelings of, embarrassment or shame?
I hate that. I hate that so much.
Yeah.
I feel like, like you said, I speak it. So whenever I would see it, like someone like shame someone for not speaking Spanish, even though they're Mexican, I'd always be quick to try and defend them because like whether it is like I have stake in the game or not, like I just don't think that anyone should like feel shame for not being able to like speak a specific language, even if it's like embedded in their culture. I understand when like people think it's like preferable to learn the language, especially like if it's from your heritage.
Sure.
But I don't think anyone should be like critiqued for it. I think it's really interesting that you bring that up because it kind of brings you back to the conversation we were having earlier and how like you've kind of changed my perception about white people. In that like I would automatically associate like white people with like a specific persona,
Sure.
like not necessarily being like open to like learning a different language or a different culture. So like when like just after seeing your videos and like now interacting with you, or mostly like even just seeing your videos, like I don't feel any form of like disconnect from you. You know, like that's typically how I feel when I encounter like white people or just like a different group. And there's like no animosity behind that. I think it's just kind of normal. Like, It's a cultural like distinction.
Sure.
But I think what I really like particularly about people that are not native Spanish speakers, that like devoted themselves to like learning the language, it demonstrates to me that you're a person who's open and you're a person who wants to explore and learn about different cultures, and that's someone that I can just get along with a little bit easier.
Totally.
And so
you feel a little bit more, you feel safe and understood.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always tell people, you know, one of my favorite quotes about language learning is from Nelson Mandela, and he says, you know, when you speak to a man in his second language, you're speaking to his brain or his mind. When you speak to him in his first language, you're speaking to his heart. And it's interesting because the second I will start speaking Spanish to someone who, you know, grew up speaking Spanish instead of English, it's like, wow, like all of a sudden it's like a switch. You can almost see it in their eyes.
Yeah.
This happened to me literally the other morning. I was out for breakfast with my parents here, and you know, there was a guy, we were chatting, I complimented him, I said, hey, nice beard, I like your beard, looks good. He said, thanks so much. You know, I noticed that he had an accent, and I was like, oh, he probably speaks Spanish. So I asked him, do you speak Spanish? He said, yeah. So he started speaking, and he just like, you know, totally flipped.
Yeah.
You know, like at first he's kind of, you know, more shy and reserved, and then boom, like, oh my gosh, you've been to my state? Oh, I can't believe that.
Yeah,
That's so cool. Like, you know, so it's really fun.
Yeah, so then I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So like, how has this like shift in learning a new skill impacted your life?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I mean, learning Spanish changed my entire life. I mean, we're filming a video for my Spanish YouTube channel. I live in Mexico now. My girlfriend is a native Spanish speaker. And just all the incredible experiences that I've been able to have because of learning Spanish. You know, I've traveled all throughout Mexico. I've, you know, spoken to a bunch of different Spanish speakers from all over the Spanish-speaking world.
Yeah.
So it's a total life change for sure.
What are some things about Mexico that you wish that people understood?
That's a great question. The number one question I'm always asked when I tell people I live in Mexico is it safe? Or do you feel scared? Or is it dangerous? Or whatever. Because, you know, as portrayed on the news, that it's a very dangerous country and you gotta be careful. And don't get me wrong, there are many dangerous places in Mexico. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said that wasn't the case.
Right.
However, for many people, it's not like every single day they're like living in fear and always worried. Maybe in some parts of the country, absolutely. And there's definitely some pretty unfortunate poverty in many parts of the country. But yeah, I think that's the number one thing, is that not everything you see in the news about Mexico is necessarily, you know, the day-to-day reality for people.
Yeah, you know, now that you mention that, I've never been to Mexico, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I've wanted to go, but I've hesitated because of like exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think what I just heard on the news kind of made me a little bit paranoid.
Yeah.
But my family's gonna hate me for saying this.
Yeah.
But I think after seeing your videos, I feel more inclined to actually visit.
You're like, dang, this white guy can do it, I can do it too.
Kind of. Yeah, because my family's been trying to get me to go like since I was a kid. But I'd always kind of just decline the offer.
Yeah.
Because I would hear like some stories of things like maybe being a little bit dangerous, but
Totally.
But no one's ever really been like in a super like dangerous situation.
¿Y puedes contarnos un poco más sobre tu experiencia como pues, mexicano-americano aquí en Estados Unidos, como, no sé, como un poco más, cómo te has sentido?
Crecí en un ambiente donde la mayoría fue latinos, entonces cuando empecé a ir a otros lugares en Los Ángeles, donde había diferentes tipos de personas, me sentía incómodo. Me sentí incómodo porque sentía que no me iban a entender o me iban a juzgar, ¿verdad? Es más que un problema como internal o personalmente. No es porque ellos hicieron algo en particular que merecía sentirme así. Nomás era como un sentimiento. Quisiera saber de dónde venía, pero lo que sí me encanta es que ya que estoy más grande y tengo amigos de diferentes partes del mundo, están muy interesados de mi cultura, de la comida, del lenguaje. Algo que yo siempre me encanta como introducir a mis amigos es bolis, ¿verdad? Porque algo que yo no sabía, que la comida de mexicana es picosa, como yo pensé que todos los otros países hispanos tenían comidas similares.
Claro.
Entonces conocí a mi amiga de El Salvador que ella dijo que nada de la comida es picosa.
Ajá, que no comen como comida picante.
Sí. Entonces fue como interesante descubrir eso.
Claro. Sí, es muy interesante.
Otra palabra que me acabo de descubrir por ti es aguajalote. Cuando estaba mirando tu video de cuando estabas en Michoacán.
Ajá, exacto.
Y trucha, creo que es trout.
Ajá, exacto.
Yeah.
Trucha.
Pero siempre yo conocía trucha como ponte trucha.
Ajá, exacto, ponte trucha. ¿Y hay algo más que quieres compartir, que quieres que como el mundo sepa de tu vida o de las vidas de los latinos aquí en Estados Unidos?
I guess me being Mexican American, it is a big part of my identity, but is not the primary focus of my identity.
Okay.
So I first want to be identified as someone who's kind, right, as opposed to like Mexican.
Sure.
You're kind of limiting yourself from interacting with people or like developing relationships.
Yo quiero que tú vayas a México para que veas cómo es allá, para que conozcas tus raíces y sería genial para ti ir con tu familia y sí, como poder explorar, conocer lo que es Colima o Durango.
¿Me vas a llevar a pasear?
¿Puede ser?
Como yo quisiera expresar mi personalidad en la misma manera de que yo hablo inglés. Como hacer bromas con mi familia o con la gente, porque aunque sí yo diré que mi español es adecuado, no es en la manera donde yo pueda sentirme como confiado.
Ya, entiendo.
Entonces,
como sientes que no puedes ser tú mismo.
Exactamente.
100%.
Y por eso estoy muy impresionado con tu español, porque siento que puedes expresarlo como tienes el mismo nivel de inglés que español. Me imagino, no sé.
Bueno, más o menos. O sea, como ya después de los años he mejorado mucho, pero aún así, como tengo varias cosas que puedo mejorar, y en mi mente siempre puedo estar mejorando. ¿Sabes? Como, a ver, pues puedo aprender estas palabras, estas frases, no sé qué.
Eventualmente quiero llegar a ese punto porque me siento muy, ¿cómo se dice? How do you say awkward? ¿Incómodo?
Como incómodo.
Yeah, me siento como muy incómodo, como no puedo terminar como una oración o como una, how do you say interaction? Interacción, como sin ser incómodo, like, I don't know how to say, like, all right, see you later, like, oh, hey, what's up, dude? Like, I can't, I don't know how to say that in Spanish, like, carnal, ¿se dice carnal?
Carnal sería como bro o güey.
Right. Okay.
Es muy común.
Okay.
Como, ¿qué onda, güey? Hasta luego.
Yeah, and even if that is the case, like, I don't know how to, I don't know how I'm coming off if I am using this particular word because I think it might mean something else or.
Sure. I think it just depends on like the trust you have with that person and.
Right. Yeah. Because like I always say, like when I tell my mom, I tell her te quiero, right, which translates to I like you, but in reality I'm saying I love you.
Right.
And I don't know if that's like how it's coming across when I am saying it in Spanish until I actually told her. I was like, Mom, when I tell you like te quiero, what do you think I'm saying? Do you think I'm saying I like you or do you think I'm saying I love you? She's like, no, I think you're saying I love you. And I was like, okay.
So, okay, here you go. Here's a lesson for today.
Okay, cool.
So you want to say like, I like you to a girl, you'd say me gustas.
Me gustas.
That's
okay.
like you please me, literally, or like I like you.
Okay.
Now, if you said something like te quiero, that's like I love you.
Okay.
But if you say te amo, it's like a more strong way.
And if I say te gusto, that means I like you? Or no, that means
like
do you
me.
like me?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that would be like a question.
Okay.
Te gusto? Or me gustas would be like,
me gusta?
Yeah, I like you.
Oh,
that's
okay.
a tricky one for Spanish learners to grasp.
Yeah.
Is the, like verbs like gustar or, like molestar, encantar, all these different verbs.
I remember going out and interviewing people over here in the village too. and I came across, I believe, this gentleman who's Lebanese, and he thought I was Lebanese. It wasn't until he asked me for my name, and then he's like, "Oh, what's your name?" He's like, first, like, where are you from? And I was like, Gas. And he's like, well, what's your name? And I was like, Luis. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, you're Mexican. Huh? And then I remember calling my mom that day, and I was like, Mom, I was like, why did you name me Luis? It's like the most common Mexican name. I wanted to be like more mysterious.
Bueno, muchas gracias por ver el video, chicos. Si quieren aprender español conmigo, pueden en mi página web, SpanishWithNate.com. Gracias.
Saludos.
Adiós.
Oh, adiós.